This is Hard Parking, proudly sponsored by Right Hunt and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I am your host, Jhae Finning. It is NSX week. That's right. This week, I and a handful of my NSX driving buddies will be leaving the Phoenix area and driving to Dallas-Fort Worth to attend NS Expo 2024. The reason why I'm driving instead of flying is I don't talk about it much on this podcast, but I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, kindergarten through high school, a few years after high school, and I'm going to spend an extra week in town for two reasons. Number one, so I can actually say hi to some of my old friends that I haven't seen in a while, kind of showcase the car, lifelong friends. And number two, if I don't work, I don't get paid, and I can't afford to lose more time off because starting Tuesday, no pay, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's 4 days of the week where I'm not making any income. Maybe I'll call in sick one of those days. It's kind of a wink, wink. And then the following week, because it takes about 2 days driving, it's 16 hours. And then you add the 2 time zones. So really 18 clock hours, 16 real hours. And so it's not really like, sure, you could do it in a day if you leave early in the morning and get there late at night, but who wants to do that? I'm almost 50 years old. If I was 22, not a big deal. Plus, kind of want to take your time driving with your friends. So in coming back, that's why I'm going to wait and leave the following weekend. Saturday morning is what I'm thinking. And then I'll pull in here Sunday and I'll be right back. But I plan on maybe recording. I don't know. We'll talk about that at the end of this episode. Coming up on today's episode, Katherine Cox joins the show. She hasn't been around for a while. She's a financial supporter of the show. She is a really good friend of mine. She used to be in my One Auto Council, and she's a lot of fun to talk to. Really, we talk about what she does for a living. Well, we don't talk about what she does for a living. One of the cool things about what she does on Barrett-Jackson week is she gets to drive the cars. So you see all the people driving the cars from the showroom out to the auction block, over the block, and returning. So she does that. And also, we get into a gun. And also, we talk about guns. She goes shooting all the time. So we have a really fun gun conversation. And the conversation actually carried on for another hour after we stopped recording, and that was just as fun. I should have just kept recording. But before we get to that, after this word from 4 Wheel Online, a little bit of car news coming up. For over a decade, 4 Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They are dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any make or model on the road. The truck products cover everything to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. Visit them online at 4 Wheel Online. Ferrari is back in the news. For you car people, you already know this. For you non-car people, you're not going to care. But pretty cool. They've come out with a Ferrari F80. So one of the more iconic Ferraris for most people who are even into cars is the Ferrari F40, 40. And after the F40, they had the F50. And other than the LaFerrari, which came out a handful of years ago, right around the time the newer NSX came out, they really haven't had anything that's so groundbreakingly awesome, like a poster wall car. They've had a lot of really cool cars. They've had obviously the 488, 458, who can forget that? So they've had great cars, but truly, really poster wall-y, I just made that up, poster wall style cars. This Ferrari F80, you can look it up if you're able to look it up. This thing looks pretty cool, and it almost doesn't even look like a Ferrari, but apparently it's going to be around $4 million. So this thing is 1,200 horsepower. It's a hybrid engine, like my car, which doesn't, so it has twice the horsepower of my NSX. They're only making 800 of these, 799 to be exact, and they have all sold out already. $3.9 million is what they said, but according to goauto.com.au, they're saying it's $7 million, and they're also reporting as of October 21st, they are all sold out. So as of, I guess, today, people got money. It's a cool looking car. You should check it out online, the Ferrari F80. It's a fantastic looking car. The doors open up kind of like a McLaren too. Very non-Ferrari-ish. Wait, I think the LaFerrari opens up like that too, so never mind. And according to Reddit, the Lexus LFR has been spotted on public roads. I do see a shot here, and I don't know much about the LFR. In fact, I don't know anything about the LFR, but what I do know is according to carscoops.com by way of Reddit, the thing looks like it might be the successor to the LFA. Let's see what they say here. The road-going version of the rumored Lexus LFR has been spotted on public roads. This homologation special shows some key differences from the V8-powered GT3 race car. So it's based off a race car. Both models are an evolution of Toyota's GR GT3 concept coupe from 2022. So that means absolutely nothing to pretty much everybody listening to this, except for maybe one or two of you. It's a pretty cool looking car. It's not the Ferrari we just talked about. Not even close to the Ferrari we just talked about. And that's it for car news. This conversation is brought to you by The Cell Shop, an Arizona-based retailer that strives to be your destination of choice for wireless services, whether Arizona, Washington State, California, Texas, and Florida. They're an authorized AT&T dealer, so visit them at cellshop.us and get connected today. Katherine Cox, supporter of the show, supporter of me, dear friend of mine. Gosh, it's been a while. Do you remember the last time you were on the show? I was going to look it up, but I ran out of time.
It was a long time.
It was a while ago.
Pre-COVID, maybe even.
No, that's bullshit. I'm going to look that up, and I'm going to put the notes on here. I could ask ChatGPT really quick.
Oh, could you?
I bet you ChatGPT would know. So we just got done. Well, you just got done doing Barrett again.
Yes.
And I don't remember if we ever talked about that on here. I know I've talked about it casually with you.
Yeah.
Tell us while I search on ChatGPT, how did you get into that? Because I know you told me. But so you drive the cars sometimes, and then
I drive the cars.
Just tell us.
I drive the cars across the auction block. Actually, the January auction is really huge, and I take vacation time for about a week and a half, sometimes 2 weeks, depending, to check cars in from transport to video, and then parking them in the tents, and then during auction days, I drive the cars from the tent that they were parked in across the auction block and then back to where they go. And then for checkout, you would take them out of the tent again and drive them out and have them re-videoed and then sent on their happy way with their happy new owners.
So how did you get into that? Again. Because that sounds like kind of a dream job. Although we know it's a little work too.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of walking. And you need to, number one, know how to drive a manual transmission vehicle. It helps if you've had experience with other vehicles too, like actual race cars, not I made it a race cars, but like an actual race car, or if you've had experience with oversized vehicles, if you have a motorcycle license, different things like that. But a manual transmission, and I believe I forget what the age limit is, but you have to be over at least 21. I know that. They do a background check. They check your driving record, all of those things, because you're driving pretty expensive vehicles
potentially
sometimes. Yeah. It's a fun job. I got it because I knew somebody that was working for Barrett-Jackson, and I was going to the auctions anyway. And I asked him, I'm like, how'd you get in? He goes, do you know how to drive a manual? I'm like, yes, I learned on one. And so he said, awesome. Come in, send in an email. Here's all the stuff that you need to let them know. I'll send in an email and let them know that, like I'm basically sponsoring you. And that's how I got in. But it took about a year before I got to, because he put me in and was hoping to get me in that next January. I think it was in like October or something. And they already had enough drivers for that January. So it took a little over a year for me to actually get to drive for them. But they did all the checking and the HR paperwork and everything. So it's not a volunteer job. It is a paid job, so you have to be there on time. It's long hours sometimes. It's a lot of standing around more than you think.
Right.
Because you have one vehicle. So like you get the keys, they give you the key bag, you go get the car. You can't just always pull it right out because depending on where it's parked, you may need to have somebody direct you to make sure that you don't hit people or other cars or whatever. And one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do is back up a car between two cars without looking at any mirrors, any cameras, anything except for the person right in front of you. And you cannot take your eyes off of that person.
Oh,
and
wow.
you just have to trust them.
Right. And trust yourself.
And you're like sweat the first time you do it. You're just like, oh, please don't hit another car.
So what's the turnaround time? So, okay, let's take a January auction, right?
A January
let's
auction?
say Thursday,
Okay.
Friday, or Saturday.
Saturday is always the biggest day.
So
highest number of cars go through. It's televised. When it's televised, there's a certain, place you have to hit every single time. So you have to be on top of it. So it usually takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours from start to finish because you have to also park the car and hand off your keys and get your next set of keys.
Wow.
So like you have like this whole thing that you do, but to take the car from where it was parked, driving it across, the people, not
Right.
across the people, but through. Can't honk at people. You have to wait. Let them get out of your way. Don't run people over or anything. Of course. And it is fun because boy, you get to see vehicles that you probably never would have seen before. Some of them are quite unique as far as custom jobs that. Like you're like, wow.
Right. And you have the ushers too. That's a lot of times,
yes.
right? Where they're kind of, hey, everybody, left to right,
yes.
get out of the way
yes.
in case they're just completely aloof.
Especially between the staging, so the back staging lanes and the very front staging lanes. Because there's a lot of foot traffic that goes through there, but also because that last staging lane that's outside is like right before you go on the block. So you got to be there. So they've got to get you across, you can't be waiting. You have to get across. But it's really an interesting thing. You have to know whether you feel safe driving a vehicle or not. I did have to give up a vehicle because the seat wouldn't move. It was a stationary seat and I couldn't reach the clutch all the way down.
Right.
Because I'm not that tall.
Right.
But sometimes it's taller guys that are uncomfortable. Their knees are hitting the steering wheel or something and they can't, they're like, or both of the, like one foot hits both brake and gas pedal or something. So, it all depends. So it helps to have a variety of drivers, there that can do a whole bunch of different things. So.
How many cars, what's the percentage of cars would you say that you're handing off at the final staging when a lot of the owners and people who have a vested interest in the car want to get in the car and take it off on stage versus, do you always drop them off there or do you actually take the cars up on stage?
Barrett-Jackson used to allow the owners to drive them across the stage, but insurance things and different types of things changed. Due to some incidences, I'm sure, but, part of it is just, the consistency of it. So a lot of times, if you've never been to a Barrett-Jackson show or you've never seen a Barrett-Jackson show, once they get up to the very top of the block right there where
Right.
they stop, they will push the car off down to the ramp, and you have to hold the car at the ramp, and then you go out in neutral because we can't. There's a few cars that they'll allow to drive off, but for the most part, they don't want the cars running at any point once they've hit that front part. You know, you drive it up to the stopping point, and then the engine goes off, and it stays off all the rest of the way until you're outside of the town. Carbon monoxide, you know.
Sure, I guess it matters.
Too much of it. Too much of it's not a good thing. So, you know, and that's why we start and stop a lot. Like you'll see us sitting there waiting until we hear something, and you know, then we have all the people saying, you know, like you start up and move up one car at a time, then you shut your car down again. So you have a lot of that start and stop or short periods that you're driving, and you have to be paying attention the entire time. You can't, you know, be on your phone. You can't, none of that stuff. It's strictly forbidden for one thing. And it is also a matter of, you know, making sure that everything goes smoothly. So
this last weekend, it was the newest one, the fall version.
Yeah.
You know,
in the hottest fall.
The hottest fall probably in record history. Did you get to drive any of those little micro cars?
The little ones?
Yeah, the little tiny ones. I saw one.
No.
Looked like a little go-kart you stick your kid in.
Yeah, my friend Rachel got to drive one. There were two, I think there were a total of 5 or 6. 2 were gas powered and the rest were like a bunch of little like car batteries under them. But those things were nice. Like the one that looked like a Jaguar, it looked just like a shrunken down version.
Was it green?
It was green.
I saw a green one.
It was awesome. And then there was you wouldn't believe how many people wanted pictures with the little military Jeep, you know? It
I
was
didn't see that.
Just a little tiny shrunken down. It was right behind, I was driving a Ford Raptor and it was right behind me. And I'm like, oh, I can't even see you in my mirrors.
That's funny. What did you think though?
Of what?
Of this weekend?
I thought that it was not as large, of course, as January. I think part of it is people weren't really expecting it, and it was hot. I mean, in January we have more vehicles, so more outdoor. Yeah, a lot more. But we also have more outdoor, and I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't want to be outside." So most of our stuff was inside for the fall. But I saw Sammy Hagar there. He was selling his LaFerrari Ferrari, and I got to see the Bugatti. I'm going to say it wrong. Chiron.
I never say it correctly, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the blue one.
Yeah, the blue one. I was actually right behind it. I was driving a Ferrari Roma right behind it. So, I mean, it like those kind of things. It's like, wow, when would I ever have the opportunity to be in this kind of atmosphere? People are, for the most part, really nice. Every once in a while, you get some people that don't want to get out of the way, or don't, like they're like, I don't know, they're not paying attention.
Right.
not really sure. Or they're staring at like how much it went for, and you're like, I'm driving, actually.
Right. And I'm guessing you're not allowed to honk.
Not at all. No.
Right.
No. But it is, I mean, and part of that is because you don't want a bunch of people like being startled and, feeling like you're being rude, because you can't make a tone on a honk, like beep, beep, like, hey, can you move a little bit? It just comes out loud sometimes.
You need those little compressed can air horn things to stick out the side.
A little bicycle bell, ding, 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 ding.
Right. Something. But that's when the ushers come in. Oh, by the way, the last time you're on Hot Rockin' Podcast, according to ChatGPT, Katherine Cox appeared on the Hard Parking Podcast with Jhae Finning, episode 36, which was released on April 29th, 2022. So it's been that long.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. I'm sure people listening want to know maybe what's the craziest or what's your favorite vehicle that you've gotten behind? Because you've been doing this now for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what were you most scared to drive other than the one you probably couldn't see? And sometimes, you told me a story once, sometimes there's owners nearby. And they might look at you up and down and be like, you're going to drive my car?
Yeah. Actually, I was told I wasn't allowed to drive a vehicle because I was female.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You got to deal with that.
Yep. Well, there are only, I think, 5 or 6 female drivers total, you know, like right now, because it's mostly something that men do, and, you know, that they're into. Like a lot of men are, you know, very, you know, there a lot of the drivers, although we're getting a lot of younger drivers again, you know, like, which is good to see to me. One of the girls that's coming up, she's not old enough to drive for them, but she's learning. So she's having her dad teach her how to drive a manual transmission because she's like, I want to drive. So I want my dad to teach me how to drive a manual transmission. And right now she does like video and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I think, like I said, it's either 21 or 24. I don't know what it is that you have to be before they'll put, because of, again, I'm sure insurance has a big portion to do with that. You know, being insurable when you're driving. So
what was your favorite thing you've driven so far at Barrett-Jackson? And then the second part is, do you remember what the most expensive thing was once it passed the block?
I do. The most expensive thing past the block, or the most expensive I drove?
Most expensive you drove.
The most expensive
because you never know until the auction's over.
That's right. No, and you want to know something very interesting is sometimes what you don't expect to go for a high dollar amount goes for a very high dollar amount. So the most expensive thing I drove across the block was a 58. I think it was a 58, but it had very low original miles. It was, you know, original vehicle all together, Corvette, convertible, and it went for over 500,000.
Oh, okay.
Around 520 something thousand. And then
so nothing expensive.
Yeah, well, I drove I know, right? I drove that Ferrari Roma, but somebody got that one for a good deal, I'll tell you that. Let's see. My favorite car that I've been in was the Mercedes AMG. It was, oh my gosh, like you sit down low. It was very, very luxurious, you know, gull-wing doors and everything. It was like a 24, I think, a 2024.
You could see over the hood?
Favorite. Could I see over the hood? It was an AMG, like the little sports car.
No, those Mercedes AMGs have these long hoods.
Oh, yeah.
Like these cartoony long hoods.
It did have a long hood. I could see past it.
Okay.
I always drive a couple feet out beyond anyway.
Right.
Scariest vehicle I drove, other than the very first vehicle driving across the block, which was like a Razor that was so tall I couldn't get in and out of it. But it wasn't scary to drive. It was just a trick to get in and out of it. It had tractor wheels on it. So you climb on the tractor wheels to get up in. It was taller than I was. Like the bottom of the vehicle was taller than I am. So yeah, it was fun to climb in and out of. But I think would be I had basically a car that had no engine, no brakes, no transmission, no electrical, no nothing. It's just the car shell and wheels. And they pushed it. Yeah. And just the reason that was scary is because trying to steer it and stop it when you have nothing there, like no power. It wasn't fun. It was
Yeah.
a little terrifying, but yeah, that's probably because you couldn't unroll the windows because the windows were rolled up. It was a Dodge, it's like for race car builders. Dodge will sell just basically the body and the frame and wheels, whatever, and you put in all your own stuff. So that was probably the most heart-inducing. Like,
Right.
I don't
I would
want to
imagine.
crash. So, but those are. I mean, there's always every time I get behind the wheel of something, I'm like, oh, I like this. Like, oh, now I want a truck. Oh, now I want an SUV. Oh, now I want this.
It makes for a lot of stories because you've driven a lot of cars and you'll continue driving a lot of different cars. I mean, maybe you're not taking them out on the road course of the freeway, but technically you're driving them and you're navigating them around people.
Well, and learning things like, so you have to find out where like start is. You have to find out, like, do you need a key fob? I drove the Aston Martin. Luckily, it was my second year driving an Aston Martin, and I knew that there was a fob that you had to push in. And
Sure.
But the first time, I'm like, how do I even start this thing?
Right.
There's no key. There's no push button. I'm like, I don't get it. Where do you start it?
And then the Porsches have the key slot on the left side, which is
right.
Throw
Correct. And then you have like the really old cars. Like I had one that had the start, like to start it, the starter button was under the gas pedal. And the gas pedal, you had to like push down to start it, but then you had to let it up, but not too far, because if you let it up too far, it would die. And if you pushed it down too hard, it would be like, it would flood.
Right.
And I'm like, how do people drive cars like this?
I haven't heard about flooding engines with gas in a long time.
Right?
Wow.
That's the other thing, that choke, like, gosh, what else? The Model Ts are a whole nother thing too, because they have like different like levers on them. I don't drive them, but I have watched people drive them. And they have levers that, determine acceleration. They also have levers that determine, like the gears and stuff like that on the steering wheel. And then you also have your gas pedal on the floor, but the acceleration is kind of like a different, like how much fuel, I guess, gets in there. It's unique, and every vehicle has, like some of these custom vehicles. Then you also have, you're getting into a vehicle that you think but no, now there's a start button that's under the dash or something, and there's battery cutoffs, and you're like, why isn't it turning on?
Right, all the custom work.
Yes, so there's also the custom
work.
ones.
Yeah.
Yes. So you have all those other things, and when we check them in, we try to write down as much of the hints that we can on the bag that goes with the keys, so that when you're getting in for the auction for the first time in that car, because you were doing other cars before, so first time you get in it, you flip to the thing and say, okay, how do I start this thing?
Nice, a little knowledge base.
A little bit. If it's something different or unique, especially if it's, custom, and you have to open the, center console in order to reach, turn on the key or something. I had a 57 Nomad this year at check-in that you turned the key on, but you didn't crank it. You just turned the key on and then used the start button to start it, but to shut it off, you just shut off the key. You didn't push the button. So you just had to know all of that stuff.
Wow.
So you don't ruin the car.
How many oh crap moments have you had?
Are
you allowed to disclose that? Where you're like, oh shit.
Well, no, I did have a couple, but they're my own, like my own panic moments, kind of like going across the block when I went to start one of the vehicles. The starter button itself pushed like all the way through the thing. So there was like nothing, it like came loose or something and it just pushed through. So I couldn't start the vehicle. And they're like, start it, start it. I'm like, I can't. The button's gone.
You start it.
And the owner did. He's like, let me do it. And he's like, oh. And I'm all like, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's why we can't let these women drive these cars. Oh, hold up.
But that's, I mean, you just sit there. One time I ran out of gas. I knew I was going to. They can't transport a vehicle with, too much gasoline
Right.
in it. It has a certain. And so most of the vehicles only have like maybe an 8 quarter tank at the most.
Quarter max.
Yeah, max,
Right.
max. And that's not normal. And, older, I'm sure, some of your listeners know about older tank, float tank things don't always read super accurately. And, it's not, they're not all electronic and new. So some of these vehicles, the gas tank may have changed size or maybe the float's just wrong. There's a dent in the tank, who knows? But whatever the case may be, you may not be getting quite an exact reading on how much gas you have. And I could tell this vehicle was going to run out of gas. I was just like, I need gas. And the mechanics are all like, oh, you'll make it. Ran out of gas on my way back to the tent. And I just sat on the side waiting.
I'll tell you a
like,
funny
are
story.
You okay? And I'm all like, I'm a girl. I ran out of gas.
I had a Honda Civic years ago, and I had changed out the little fuel tank floater thingy, right?
Uh-huh.
And I think I changed out the fuel filter, which was in the fuel tank. And once I put it all back together, the vehicle would die somewhere around a quarter tank because the float was off. Basically, what you were just saying. I ended up selling it to a friend and didn't even think about disclosing it. So they had come from Chicago to Grand Rapids, Michigan to pick the car up.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So you know where this story's going. Yeah, they weren't very happy with me because I forgot to tell them, and they ran out of gas somewhere on the freeway between Grand Rapids and Chicago.
And they're like,
Yeah, last time I've messed with anything like that, I said, you know what? I'm done. Forget it. It was bad enough having to drop the tank, getting gas everywhere. And then, yeah. Let me ask you this, because I saw you this weekend. It was great to see you. As always, it doesn't happen very often. And we still need to go out and have a bourbon or 3.
Yes.
Did you,
definitely.
Were you able to stop by and do your little pew-pewing?
Yeah, not last night, but I'm going to go tomorrow.
Tell us what you have. Give us a rundown.
Of all or just of the one?
Oh, how many? Okay, all right. Yeah, well, I mean, you told me you had one yesterday and I started asking questions, but what all do you have, Kath?
I started off with 22s when I was young. So I have a 22 revolver that has just like the 22 and a 22 mag swap out. It's
tiny bullets.
Yeah, little baby bullets. And then I have a 38 special revolver, and I have a Glock 43X.
So you have 2 revolvers and a Glock?
Mm-hmm.
Those revolvers, man. They're fun to shoot, but I don't know why. Of course, I don't even own a gun, but I always think to myself, God, if I had to stop somebody and I only had 6 bullets, I'd be so screwed.
Oh. I know, that's the thing with the revolver. So because I do a lot of hiking and camping and stuff like that, it's good to have extra, like a little extra with you besides just you.
So do you have one like on your hip and one on your ankle, and then like, are you like super packing?
I do carry concealed, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And the gun people can correct me, or of course you may know this as well. I'm pretty sure my cousin has a revolver that actually has more than 6, maybe 7. It's like a super limited 1 year. I don't remember if it's a Smith & Wesson. I mean, I'm going to have to fact check myself. But I'm pretty sure last year we shot a revolver that had, so there was something super special about it, and I think it had more than 6 bullets.
Yeah. That would be interesting. Now you can get those fast load, so um, they just like, you can pop it out and pop them back in, like, so all 6 go in at one time. You can get those for the revolvers.
I had a
You
cap
can
gun like
also,
that.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy it's nice to go out and shoot and everything. And I'm one of those odd people that aren't like super crazy about guns. I mean, like, it's not like, oh, I have to have every gun there is. I don't have that problem, but I do enjoy shooting them, and I do enjoy, seeing them and stuff like that. I always have. So
They're cool. And quick update. So there are revolvers that have 7, 8. Let's see. We have a question here. There's a Ruger that has a 10.
oh yeah, interesting.
It's like you're getting up into the Gatling gun, the handheld Gatling gun at this point.
Have one of those, like, what do you call it, bandoliers with all the bullets in it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would turn mine to a Gatling gun, have a little crank on the side of it.
I can see that.
That'd be pretty silly. And then, of course, you said you have that Glock. That's what I was asking you about. Which is worse, the Glock or the non-22 6-shooter you have?
The 38 special it's an even shorter barrel than my
so that
Glock
thing's got a
is.
kick.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
They both do, but I mean, like, I've shot Glock 19s, Glock 17, and those are like, make me feel like those make me feel so much better about how accurate I can be, because I can be like, oh yeah, I'm not as bad as I think I am.
Sure. We were talking yesterday or the other day, whenever it was that I saw you at Barrett, and I was looking at a car. I think it was a Mustang. Which, do you still have your Mustang, or are you selling it?
I do.
Okay, I think it was a Mustang, and we're talking about shooting. And I think I said, if someone comes at me, I can't guarantee you that I could hit that, because I was talking about on every movie,
the entire car.
How there's like zero recoil on these gunfights.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm sitting there looking at this car, and I'm like, man, that's got to be scary, trying to shoot something, even if it's that close with the recoil. Yeah. So I think I would, if I ever got a gun, I'd want to get something with the lowest recoil possible, but not something pathetic like a 22 that's not going to stop anyone, And I used to have like a little pocket 380, and I don't even know how I shot that thing without, flipping out. But yeah, that's my biggest concern in owning a gun for personal protection, is something that I could at least hit what I'm shooting at.
Well, and if you're looking at for personal protection, like within the home, there's a lot of options.
Some people say shotgun, because you can't really miss.
Actually, you can't. Actually, that is one of the things that, because you can even just sit there, but you also have to know that, like, it has, if a person's within 3 feet, it might not be the best option for you.
Right.
And I don't know, like, for personal protection, something like a 17, which is it's a 9mm. Mm-hmm. It has like almost.
Is that the police gun?
So smooth. It is. Yeah. The 19 was the original, I believe, police gun, but I think they've gone to 17s. I'm not sure. They may still use 19s, but yeah. And I mean, of course, everybody has an opinion. So there are going to be people that hate Glocks, blah, 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 and that's fine. There's
a lot of options
guns
out there, just like liquor.
Exactly. There are so many options, and it just all depends. I mean, the one thing that I can say is that it does get expensive, because if you're going to practice, you got to practice. And then if you're practicing, you're going through ammunition, and ammunition can get expensive.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that as you're talking about it. And maybe I would get, like, if someone was running across my yard, I think I'd rather have a shotgun, just because when we went shooting with my cousin, we did clay pigeon shooting. And they're a lot smaller than I remembered. Of course, when you're a little kid, they're bigger. They're like Frisbee size.
Huge when you're a little kid,
But
right?
I think these may have been 4.5 or 5 inch in diameter. If even, I think they're smaller than that, actually. Like, they're pretty fucking small. And he's got one of those little sling, those little throwers.
Yeah.
Those clay throwers.
Clay pigeon things, yeah.
Yeah, and we hit him pretty accurately with the shotguns we were firing.
Yeah.
So I think maybe, So I'm going to test it because we had some break-ins here maybe a month or two ago. My mother-in-law saw it happening. She saw a bunch of people. This was probably around 12 at night, and I actually had gone to bed early. I usually don't go to bed that early.
I know. I was going to say, you would have been up.
And we didn't hear about it the next day where they'd gotten to my next-door neighbor's garage. They got into their car in their garage, and there was a big old pile of just junk out in front of the house. So the long story, the end story was they stole this vehicle, this SUV in Queen Creek, and they were just flying through these neighborhoods and running around and trying to open people's cars, getting people's houses, getting people's garages, steal whatever they can. And so she saw these guys running across the yard, and our neighbors saw them on their camera too. But they're goofy. They have a ton of kids. They don't really pay that much attention sometimes. And so their van was unlocked. Their garage door opener, of course, was in their van. So they got into their garage and stole some fake guns that they probably thought were real because they're just grabbing and going.
Right.
And all the stuff that was knocked out onto the ground in front of our house was things that were originally in that vehicle when they stole it. And it was a bunch of like school supplies and probably something for elementary kids. But it was crazy. But my mother-in-law swears she saw someone running with a gun, like a rifle, but she's, fucking batshit crazy sometimes. And so when she says, I think I saw a gun, I'm like, I didn't see no fucking gun. But when our neighbor called the cops and the cops showed up and the police officer was telling us that, they like to run around and steal whatever they can. And they really look for guns because that's something they could sell really quick.
Yeah.
But that made me think about seeing them run across because we live in Arizona,
Yeah. Well, and the thing is in Arizona, I mean, like, people never stopped carrying guns. I mean, concealed carry is recent that you don't have to, go through all the testing and everything else anymore. But the holster on the hip kind of thing, that's been around forever. I mean, like, it never went away.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's pretty nutty. Well, Kat, we have to get together.
Yes,
I know we missed you. So Wes and I miss you on One Drink Wednesday.
What's that?
We miss you on One Drink Wednesday.
I'll come back.
Are you still doing bingo with the ladies or something?
Yeah, right. I think sometimes, no, I'm not doing the Wednesday thing on the Bunko games, but now what I'm doing is working on Wednesdays in Tempe, and so now I have a long drive, but I should be able to. I don't know what's going on this Wednesday.
Well, some of our more dedicated listeners sometimes will actually peep in from work.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm in the break room. I'm watching you guys from the break room. It's like, all right, cool. Why don't you just, put the phone down and reheat some Hot Pockets and go back to work?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Maybe I could do it from the car.
Well, it's even more safe.
In the car.
Yeah. We've had that too. Turkey Garcia. So I think the very first time Turkey called in, he was in his car because we were busting on him for his little weak ass dome light. I'm like, dude, are you in your car? I forgot about that, but yeah.
Car.
Yeah, good old Turkey. I tell you what, it's great rapping with you. Much love. Thank you so much for always being you.
You're welcome. Have fun editing.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be easy. It'll be easy.
Oh, yeah.
And then, we're going to do it this Wednesday, which by the time this comes out, it would have probably been last Wednesday. And then I'm at NS Expo. So I'll be gone.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So that's.
Where is it this year?
Dallas.
Oh, fun.
Yep. Driving out there because it's home.
Yep.
showing the car out for a while. So then 2 Wednesdays I will be on because I'll just be working from the hotel. But we got to get you on there at some point. It'd be nice to see you pop your head in there just to say what's up.
Absolutely. It sounds good. And then you can see my crazy puppy dog because she'll probably be in my face.
Oh, yeah. We could do show and tell because Mila is usually in my office.
It sounds good. All righty. Well, take care, Jay.
You too. Thanks, Kat.
Bye.
Once again, I want to thank Katherine Cox for being not only a supporter of the show, but for coming on. And it's been a while, as we discussed, and those conversations are always a lot of fun. In fact, we were supposed to do it in studio. I ran out of time, and our schedules aren't very good, but we're going to meet up and have a couple bourbons. She recently lost her father, and so I owe her a drink for that as well. She showed up in a big way, as she always does. When I lost my father 4 years ago today, as of me recording this, so October 20th of 2020. And she's just an incredible person. I would give you her socials, but she hardly ever posts. She's more of an online creeper at this point, but she's a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. I think I'm going to take a microphone, maybe take both microphones to NS Expo with me. I have a friend that's car has broken down, so now he's going to be riding with me there. And I love hanging out with him. Well, I like hanging out with him. But kind of, you go across the country and you think to yourself, as long as you have a radio and you have the other guys, gals, whatever, in other cars, then you can communicate and have fun. But I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to music, random music. I listen to just about anything. I don't listen to country. I'm not really into country at all. I don't hate it, but it's not something that I have. Like, I don't own any of the songs. That's how much I like it, right? I don't hate it. But, I kind of like zoning out and just listening to that stuff. But then you have a stranger in your car. And so you find yourself kind of pandering to whatever it is that they want to listen to and do, just out of being a decent, good person. And Jhae is his name. And no, it's not me. He doesn't probably give a rat's ass either way, but it'll be an interesting trip. But I'm thinking about bringing microphones, and I don't know if I'm going to record during NS Expo. Maybe I can grab a guest or something and bring him into the hotel room, set up the mics. But I will be staying in Dallas for another week. Like I said in the opening, seeing other people, which gives me an opportunity to record something from the hotel room, which kind of takes me full circle. Because when I first started this podcast, I was recording in hotel rooms as something to do during the week when I was traveling every week for work. So that'll be interesting. So maybe I just convince myself to do that. Yeah, maybe I'll just do that. Want to thank Right Honda, Right Toyota of Huntington Beach, Claremont Toyota, and Gardenia Honda, 4wheelonline.com, Sales Shop Wireless Services, AutoCannon, officially licensed Honda and Acura gear. Special thanks to AutoCannon. You helped out in a big way. You helped me out personally in a big way for this NS Expo. And I don't know if they listen to the podcast. Probably not. But it's through the relationship I have with them that they were able to come through so clutch. Special shout out to Patreon business supporters. Shaping success with Wes Tankersley out of Boise, Idaho. I, for whatever reason, forgot to say that last time. Automotive Specialty Tool out of Owings Mills, Maryland. Kui Automotive out of Winter Garden, Florida. Pell Construction out of Connolly, Michigan. Big House Small Home Design out of Ashbrook, Virginia. And Traverse City, Michigan. You can join the Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Patreon.com, Hard Parking Podcast. Shout out to Mark Stoneman, Katherine Cox, the one you just heard. Addie Ramos, Richard Grays. I'll see Richard this weekend. Byron Jones, Bo Jung, Alice Camina, Drew Bunkley, and Yasu Chiba. Questions, comments, and concerns, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram @JFinning. Join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. Join the Hard Parking channel, where I constantly post stuff from X. Half of you hate it, half of you love it. I can't wait for this election to be over. I Can't Grow That You Tell the World how great this show is. Let's do this. Let's grow this thing together. And I'll talk to you all next week.
Now it's stripping time.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Shut up!